Welcome back to my channel. On today's episode, I'm going to show you guys how to make these simple mountains. So stick around. All right, guys, let's talk about mountains. So these are the different sizes I have. There's how many? 6 in total. This is a 1x3. This is a 1x4. 1x5. 1x6. This is also a 1x6. Just cut at a different angle. And this is a 1x8. Now, if you were to go and buy each one of these boards from Home Depot, it would cost you about almost $40. So if you want to cut that cost down, you can either go in and they have scrap bins all the time. They have a section where they take their bowed boards, and you can make these out of a bowed board because really you're just looking for cupping. So cupping is when you take the length of the board, if it's cupped this way, it'll make your mountain cup that way. But if the board is bowed long ways, you don't really need to worry about that. I mean, if it's drastically bowed, but usually you can get they're not that drastic. There's just a little bit bowed. You can take that and cut it up and make these mountains out of them pretty easily. So you could do that, or with sizes like this, so this is the 1x5 and this is the 1x6. You don't need to buy the 1x5. You can buy the 1x6, and at 6-foot sections, you can get a lot of mountains out of a 1x6, more than you would probably need for your whatever you're doing, unless you're trying to sell them or something, or give them as gifts. Then you may need the whole thing. But you could take the 1x6 and you can cut off the bottom. And you have the 1x5. You can cut off an inch off the bottom. A lot of times that's what I do because 1x5s mostly come with this stripe pattern. It's very hard to find a 1x5 that has a nice circular patterns in the grain. They all seem to be cut from the same section of the board. It's not a real common size that people buy. As a matter of fact, this is a 1x3 and it's the same way. I don't know if you can see how striped it looks. So again, you can cut out certain sizes and cut them down if you want, or you could just build little sets. Like I normally sell them like this. This is the 1x5 and then 2 1x4s. You can even do 1x6 if you like that. You can do them all the same color, or you can do them and mix them up a little. Here's a gray, a black, and a carbon gray. A lot of people like this combination right here. This is carbon gray, weathered gray, and this is black. I'm going to do an actual video about wood grain so I can refer you to it. But since I don't have one yet, let me just do a quick overview. When you hear some that have not been stained yet, you can see the grain in this piece. There's many different grains you can pick. This one's more of a striped. This one's more... it's got some openness to it. This one's the 1x5 that just all stripes. Not that they look bad. If you like that, the stripe look, then go for it. Here is, if you get a piece and it has, you see this wood in here? This brown in here, that's gonna not stain. The darker areas on the wood are going to resist the stain more. So you'll have more of a brown area. But that gives you more contrast. So when you see these bands in here that have a wider band of brown, those are not going to stain dark. But if you get one like this, I don't know if you can see that in this light, that has more of a thinner bands, they're going to be more of the color. So I'll show you an example in one that's stained. You see how that brown kind of stands out and gives you some contrast? And then this one is just lines. Here's a blue one. It's got a lot of lines, some swirls going on. That's where there was a knot. Whenever you have knots, there's lots of swirls. Okay, knots. If you like the knots, here's some pretty extreme, huge knots that I left in there. What I do is I'll fill in the cracks. This one had a lot of gouges and stuff. This is one that's not filled in on the back, you can see. but I fill them in with CA glue. The price of CA glue has went up a lot, but I have like a brown and a black CA glue. Now, since I bought these have went up to $20 a bottle for this little bottle. As you can see, they give you extra tops, but mine, I've ran out of them because the glue dries in the top of these, and then you have to replace the top. So this one actually snapped off in another lid that they gave me. So I've been really taking care of this brown and milking it. But you could fill in the knots with these and then sand them down, and it looks pretty cool. I like it. I like knots and stuff. Here's just one with a small, like a small knot, but it's completely filled in black. Here's another just small knot. So it's up to you if you want to leave them in there. Another thing you can do if you don't want to fill them in with CA glue, you can use a wood putty. It just takes longer to dry. Or what I'm going to try next is hot glue. You can actually buy hot glue gun sticks that are either brown or black, and you can squeeze them in there and use what they call a cold press, something cold and metal, and push it in there nice and tight, and then sand it even. I haven't tried that one yet because I've been using wood, the CA glue forever. It's just nice because you spray it and you spray it with some accelerator and it's dry in a few seconds. So that's it. Now you can do sets for different colors for the holidays. This would be a nice 4th of July set. I actually have a white that's brighter than this. This is more of an off-white. I have a white that it's hard to make the peak stand out. So I'm thinking of like doing the peak in like a different color, like a blue maybe. But so yeah, you can do red, white, and blue. I've got some new ones I'm doing right now for the holidays coming up. And again, if you don't want to make these, I sell them on my site, on my Etsy site. There's a link in the description. I sell them in sets of 3. I sell them in the small sets. I call them mini mountains. And then I sell them in the large sets of 3. Or I also have another listing where you can buy whatever size you want and whatever color you want that I have on the site. Obviously, what I have available. I have all 6 of these sizes on my site in many different colors. And I'm adding more all the time. I'm adding some purples, pinks, and like a cherry blossom coming pretty soon. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to cut, what angles you use, and all that. Let's go. So here's an example of a piece that's cupped rather than bowed. It's not very obvious, but you can see it kind of curves like this. On a bigger piece, it's much more obvious, like a 1x6. This is a 1x4, or even a 1x8. That's where you're really going to have problems if you're cupped. Okay, for these stubbier shaped mountains, I set the miter saw at 31.6. But that's just actually where it stops, where my stops are on this saw. You can do it at 30 degrees if you want, or you can cut it by hand at 30 degrees. Whatever's easier for you. It doesn't have to be exactly 31. There's no rule to that. Okay, now that I got all my sizes cut, I'm going to start sanding them on the sander. You can do it by hand if you want. It's up to you, whatever you feel like. One thing you want to be leery of is these tips. They break off really easy when you're sanding or cutting or anything. This whole chunk, as you can see how these run on a slant this way, the grain, that whole tip will come off the top. I've had it happen a lot of times. You can glue it back on. Not a real big deal, but just be leery of that while you're doing the whole process. Okay, I got them all sanded. They're almost ready for stain. Don't forget to round over all these edges, and it keeps them from splintering. Sometimes when you go to stain, your rag will get caught on a piece of the wood sticking up, and it just splinters right off if you have them too sharp of an edge. So round over all your edges so they don't chip off later, and so you don't get any splintering. Okay, so I'm trying out. Home Depot stopped selling all their Varathane products, which I used to use. So they got all these Bear products. I'm trying out this Bear espresso, seeing how it comes out, seeing if I like it. So I want to put it into the repertoire. I usually get these rags from Walmart. I usually do the edges first. I use a rag rather than a brush because I feel like you have more control over a brush. I use the brushes with the thicker stains. Like some of the water-based stains are very thick, so it's hard to like get enough onto the rag. So in that case, I use a brush. But for the most part, I feel like you have more control with a rag than you do a brush or a sponge. So I do the edges first. Some stains do not like you to touch them while they're drying. So if you're staining small stuff like this, normally you would have to hold it on one of the surfaces, like on the sides right now. Some stains don't like that. I don't know about this stain, so I'm just going to be careful and not touch it. I usually put one, this is small enough I can fit it in one hand. Sometimes I can't. So far, I really like this espresso. It's nice and thick. I use a dark walnut, and it's very thin, which is nice in some instances, but it really seeps into soft wood. And this is a very consistent, I like it. I like it a lot. This is going to be added to my repertoire. This may even replace the dark walnut, which is one of my most popular colors. It's just very hard to use. This is a bare stain. This is espresso, so you can pick you some up from from Home Depot. They have it there. The dark walnut I use is actually, I believe, a min wax that I get from, I think, Lowe's, but they also sell it at Walmart. It's just a classic dark walnut stain, which is, like I said, which is sometimes those classic stains are harder to use because that came out a little light at the bottom. I'm going to throw another coat on, see how it looks. When I do my second coat, I just go with very little because I feel like when you use too much stain, some stains work by whatever makes the color is in a solvent. Like say chocolate is in a solvent, and then when the solvent goes away, it leaves the color. So if you do too much stain and then wipe it right off, it wasn't enough to evaporate away a little bit and leave some solvent. So I put it on nice and thin, and it seems to come out darker. I don't know if that's true. I might have just made that all up in my head, but that's what it seems like to me. So then, because a lot of times if you go with stain and it starts to dry, you can go right over it with more stain, and it will lighten the stain rather than take it away. And I believe that's because you're redissolving the solvent. So there you go. That's a really nice color. I like that. I'll have to show you the dark walnut and see if you think it's a replacement. Let me go over this. I'd rather go over it than it, because I took it off too soon, and add a little bit more back than to put it on once and it's too much. So this one gives you a little bit of time to work with it, where the dark walnut, it absorbs so fast, you're done. Anyways, so there's one. So yeah, you can stain them all the same color. You can stain them all different colors. You can stain them all different shades of brown, different shades of gray. I have some that I do gray and white, a light gray, a dark gray, a black, and then sometimes even a white. I'll throw one in there. But if I'm only doing 3, then I just do the grays. People really like that. So I'm going to stain the rest of these, and then we will work on peaks. Okay, so now that we have them stained, now it's time to put the peaks on them. There's 2 different ways you can do the peaks. It's up to you. If you don't want to go out and have to buy anything extra, then you might just want to do white paint. In that case, then you would do the white paint now. I normally do a vinyl peak. I started doing vinyl. I used to do the paint, and the reason I switched to the vinyl is because the problem that I was talking about earlier, where the peaks chip off, the vinyl kind of helps that. It protects it. This is one that was done with vinyl, You can get a much sharper edge on the with the vinyl than you can with painting them. This is the one that I painted a while ago. It's an older one. You can see I got better with my peaks over here with the shape of them and stuff. But besides that, you can kind of see the texture of the paint. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but there's like a texture to the paint. This one is just a nice smooth finish. So you have to decide if you're going to paint them. You paint them now. If you're going to put the vinyl, then I do a clear coat first. So I'm going to show you how to clear coat. I'm going to skip to that, and then I'm going to show you how to paint one. So I'll show you how to do both. But that's your decision you need to make. If you're going to do it paint, you do it now before you clear coat. If you're going to do vinyl, you do it after you clear coat. Vinyl sticks better to the clear coat. Then you do another layer of clear coat over the vinyl. So you kind of put the vinyl in between. And when I say vinyl, what I do is that you could buy a sheet of vinyl, like the permanent vinyl that you put on, like you see people make with the Cricut machines and the Silhouette machines, and you can make letters out of them and put them on stuff. You could buy a sheet of it, of white, for like less than $3 at, it's bigger than this. It's like a sheet of paper. You could buy a sheet of it for less than $3 at Walmart. And then I cut it. I take it from this, and then I trace the mountain on there, and then I cut out a triangle like so. This would be for this size right here. And then I cut the peaks into that very easily with a little X-Acto knife. And then I just stick it on there. And that's it. And then I clear coat over it. So this would be the size for this. And this is, if you look on the back, there's some squares. For this one right here, I normally do about 4 squares. I don't know what the squares are. They look, I don't know what size they are. They're more than 1/4 of an inch, but I don't know if there's a specific size. And then for these taller ones like this, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares for this one. So you can judge it by that. Another thing is if you're going to paint it, a lot of times what I had a problem with, and one of the major reasons I switched, was because of you mask it, but you still get some paint under the masking, and then you're done. You can't. You have to like keep making another line and playing with it. It's not very easy to fix. Where the vinyl, you're done. You don't have to worry about that. So I'll show you that when we do that later. But right now I'm going to show you how to clear coat these. We're going to start clear coating and then put on some vinyl. I normally use the matte finished Behr clear coat. It's a water-based clear coat. Dries in like 30 minutes, pretty much an hour. You might as well just go for the hour. You can do another coat in I'd say 30 minutes, but depending on how dry it is. I live in a very dry climate. But yeah, I usually do this Behr. I like the matte finish. It's a lot more forgiving than than the glossy finish. But if you want a gloss finish, do a gloss finish. And I also use the water-based because of how fast it dries in between coats. So I normally do at least 2 coats. You do the first coat, and because it's a water-based, when you wet wood, it kind of makes the fiber stand up, so gives it a rough feeling, rougher than before you even clear coat it, believe it or not. And so you have to knock it down with some sandpaper again, then do a second coat, and it's going to be really smooth at that point. But then you do a third coat, and it's even smoother. So just go with the grain. I usually start in the center and swipe that way, and then I go back the other way. You don't want to take too long with the clear coat. It will get sticky on you fast. And then I'll set this one over here to dry. Okay, so some stains will tell you can clear coat after 2 hours. They'll say like 2 hours, but you have to read the fine print. That's if you're using an oil-based clear coat. If you use a water-based, some of them will tell you to wait till the next day. We'll give it 24 hours, and I recommend that too. Some of them take even longer than that. Like this honey that I really like, it comes out really well. It sometimes doesn't cure even within 24 hours when I use the water base. And then what will happen is it leaves it makes it look really light because the water based doesn't turn clear. It looks milky. So it just makes it mutes the colors in your in what you're doing. You can really see the clear coat. If you're going to use a water base, you may want to give it 24 hours or more before you do your clear coat. But then if you're using water base, you can do it where you save time is you could do another coat right away, where sometimes with the oil based polyurethanes you have to wait 24 hours for that. So okay, so get yourself that $3 sheet of vinyl and then cut it into strips like this, depending on what size mountain you're doing. For this one I usually do the 5 square. And then you want to take that, and then you'll set your mountain on top, on the bottom part, and you'll just trace it. Then you'll cut it out, what you've traced, with a ruler and an X-Acto knife. All right, and then you'll have something like this, and then you can check it. If you need to, you can take a little off the side. And there we go. That looks pretty good. So then I usually will start at the corner with this. And I mean, you can really do whatever you want. I like 3 points. That seems to be the best looking. And I start with one side a little bit longer, whatever side I start with. So I go off the far corner. Then I cut it. Then I cut it that way, and then pull that away. See that? And then the rest I do with freehand, because I'm cutting towards this, and I just kind of eyeball where I want to be a little higher than that one, but make sure I don't make this one too skinny. Come over about right here, and then I come down. Then I'll come over here, and then I'll bring this one almost down to the edge. So I'll get it lined up, and then I'll hold it, and then boom. I probably could have done that a little shorter, but it doesn't really matter. That's it. You're just looking to make a peak. Then they give you this stuff you can get too. It's a couple bucks. It's 4 vinyl. And you just put that on there. I've used this. You can use the same one over and over again. It's just a piece of like tape. You can even use a piece of tape, really. And you put it on there. Get it to stick to the vinyl. Lift the vinyl up. Pull the backing of it off. And then, oops, my wife made me put lotion on. She said my hands look dry. Then it looked like I had my hands oiled up, like I was doing hand porn or something. Now they're all slippery. So I just line that up there. I really like, I'll show you that when I'm done. I really like this part about the vinyl too. Your edge, you're going to kind of round your edge when you're sanding. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera all over. You're going to kind of round the edge when you're sanding. And then when you put on that's it, see, it's on. When you put the vinyl on, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, it's going to leave like a dark edge from where it rounded over. And it kind of looks like it's outlined to me. I don't know if you can see that. Kind of like an eyeliner. I think it looks pretty neat. But that's it. Your peak's on. It's going to protect your top a little bit. You get a permanent, this stuff stays on pretty good, especially if you put some clear coat on first, a couple layers of clear coat, and that's it. That you can clear coat over that, which I normally do, just because I want to hide these edges so they don't snag on anything. The clear coat will do that, but that's it. That's all you got to do, and that is done. Okay, so now for the painting method, you want to get yourself some masking tape. And I always cover the edges. If you don't care and you don't want the edges covered and you want to paint all the way around it, that's up to you. This is just the way I always did it. Sometimes with certain, I'm sorry if I'm out of the... One thing you got to be careful with the masking is this tip is a little rounded, so it's going to come out rounded like that. Okay, and then on the front, you just want to make it like a peak. Just rip you off some pieces. We'll start like this, about down to here. You see how I'm coming up? About right there. And then wherever you want it to stop, rip it down, right? Get yourself a nice sharp edge. Line it up with that, come back down. Oops, I went over that a little bit. You want to rip it at an angle like that. Come down. Okay, now this one you're going to want to cut it so you have a nice smooth edge. You're going to go about like that. Call that good. Sometimes if you don't let the stain dry long enough, it's an oil based, the tape will have problems sticking. So I brush away from it. You don't want to brush towards the tape. You can brush to get the edge really nice. I'm using a chalk paint also. Gives it a little bit of a texture. And you don't want to overload your brush and smash the paint in underneath the tape. The first layer, I don't try to get a whole lot on. Just try to get coverage. It's almost like your primer layer. You could even spray this if you wanted. If you're good at spraying, you can mask off the whole thing and then spray it. I always brush away from the tape. Brush at an angle to the tape, so that you're going next to it and you get that nice clean edge, but you're not brushing underneath of it, pushing the paint underneath of it. This chalk paint's a little dry right now, so I'm having a hard time. There we go, I got it. That's my dogs fighting in the hallway. Not fighting, but playing. So that's it. Your first layer is going to be like that. Give it a few minutes to dry. As you can see, you can still see through it. It's a little translucent. And we'll come back. I'll do the final coat and then pull the tape off. All right, we're back for a second coat. Same thing. You don't need to put a whole lot. Just, I like to stroke it. I like to stroke towards the peak because it gives it like a texture of like snow. All right. Okay. That's it. Then I peel the tape off right away so that it doesn't dry over top of the tape and then chip off. So there you go. That's the painted version. Let me go back to the other one. So you got, this one is the vinyl. And that one's the paint. Like I said, I like the vinyl better. I feel like you have more control. I feel like it's cleaner edges. Another thing I wanted to show you was when I was showing you earlier about this was the classic stain, the classic oil-based stain, as compared to the premium stains. They're still oil-based, but they're a premium, so they dry faster. They're just made better than the old classic ones in certain ways. But you could see on the side, that's what I was talking about. When you clear coat, when you use water-based clear coat over top of an oil-based stain, that's what'll happen sometimes. I don't know if you can really tell. I know because I do this all the time, but you kind of see how it looks compared to this. When you put those next to each other, you can see how it left that. It means it's not dry all the way. So when I go to sand that, it'll like stick to the sandpaper, and I mean you can almost sand it off, and it just kind of sticks to the sandpaper like a sticky paste kinda. See it happen on both sides. That's one thing you got to watch for when you use these oil-based stains with the water-based clear coats. And that's it. You guys can experiment with some different shapes, different colors, different sizes. It's a very easy project that you can totally customize. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. what else you guys want to see. If you want to see any other simple ones, or you want me to do a little bit more in-depth projects, just let me know. Please like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.